This episode was brought to you by the number 42. Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is John Fillmore, and welcome to another episode of the Pokemon Analyst. Now, last time, I have to admit, my screen recording program, it started to flip out on me. And what do I mean with that? Well, my mouse, my cursor anyway, it actually recorded it like an inch or like 2.5 centimeters under where it was actually supposed to be. So yeah, that's fun. As you can imagine, probably some confusion ensued. So sorry about that. I have fixed it now, so you can actually see it. So I'm kind of twirling this thing around and nothing's happening. So that's fun. You will, of course, see the effects, right? But hopefully no confusion will now occur. So last time we were talking about cores, and let's see what we actually have. Okay, so we have a Mega Gardevoir as a core, right? And this is what it then looks like. It has telepathy, it has Hyper Voice, Calm Mind, Energy Ball, and Protect. And these are then the stats that I chose to put on it, right? I'm not showing the IVs, of course, but kind of just scrolling it up and down just to give you an idea of what we're actually talking about. And then with a modest nature, just to make it a really good sweeper, right? A really powerful force. The only problem is its defense is lacking, right? And its HP isn't that great either. So we want to change that. Now, how are we going to change that? Well, there's a couple of ways, right? First way is to have something that lowers your opponent's attack, right? And that could be several ways. That could be something like Intimidate, right? I have a couple of these tabs open so you can kind of look along. And Intimidate is a ability which lowers your opponent's attack, right? Whenever your Pokemon with Intimidate switches in, it actually lowers your opponent's attack. Now you need to be careful because a couple of Pokemon actually have some pretty nasty abilities that activate when when one of their stats is lowered, right? Which is not all that great, but I mean, what you gonna do? So be careful with those, but other than that, should be fine. A couple of them, Arbok, yeah, okay. Arcanine, actually, Arcanine is actually pretty good. It has some really good stats, as you can see right here. The only problem is, actually no, there is no problem. It's actually a fire type, so that works very well against steels, right? So it is actually a very good partner to have with a Mega Gardevoir. Smogon says the same, and it's a really good partner. You could also go for Tauros, Gyarados pretty well, Hitmontop. Unfortunately, you can't put a Mega Manectric because you already have a Mega. You can put the Salamence, Mawile, Staraptor, Landorus should you wish to as well. So there's a couple of things that you could really do, right? Scrafty is also pretty good, but it is a hidden ability, so you have to do a little bit more work in order to actually get that one. Another way, what you could do is actually use Will-O-Wisp, and Will-O-Wisp is actually a move, and it's 15. It has 15 PP, 85 accuracy, so you kind of need to be careful with that one. Because it won't hit all the time. It will hit most of the time, just not all of the time. So Vulpix, Dusclops, Dusknoir, Cofagrigus, Trevenant, but also Delphox. It has Charizard. It has things like Rapidash, Arcanine again, Gengar. So as you can see, a lot of them are either fire types, well, no duh, but also a lot of ghost types as well, right? So that can be handy. Now I want to kind of draw special attention to Sableye, because Sableye actually has the hidden ability Prankster, right? And I'll bring that one up right. No, not that one. Yeah, there we go, Sableye. It also has a Mega Evolution, so if you want to look around at that one, it's pretty good. So Prankster is its hidden ability, which is actually a really good ability. It is literally one of my favorite abilities, and that's because any of these Pokemon's non-damaging moves actually get priority, which is really good. So you have things like Will-O-Wisp, it gets priority. If you have things like Squash, and Squash forces your opponent to move last that turn, so that's really good. Let's just bring up all status moves. Attract, Captivate, Confide, Confuse Ray, Double Team, Embargo, Endure, Flash, Flatter, Foresight, Gravity, Helping Hand, Imprison, Leer, Mean Look, Metronome. Not that you really use Metronome, but oh well. Mimic, Nightmare, Psych Up, Squash, Rain Dance, Roleplay, Sleep Talk, Snatch, Spites, Sunny Day, Swagger, Telekinesis, Tickle, Torment, Wonder Room, Calm Mind, Detect, Hone Claws, Magic Coat, actually, Moonlight, Nasty Plot, Pain Split, Protect, Recover, Rest, Substitute, Taunt, Toxic, Trick, Will-O-Wisp. All of these actually have priority. That's pretty sweet, right? And that leads me to my second way of dealing with Gardevoirs' rather pathetic defenses. You could actually raise your own defense with the use of Reflect, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple of other moves out there as well. And you can do that by either first using Protect on this Gardevoir and then setting up something like Reflect or something like that, or you could have your opponent or your partner be faster than Gardevoir, which isn't saying much, but let it be faster, and then it can set up the Reflect, and then your Gardevoir doesn't necessarily need to use the Protect. It can just use Calm Mind or Hyper Voice or whatever in order to, you know, put a little pressure on your opponent. Now, a couple of things you could use Reflect with is Klefki. And you could also use it with a Meow Stick. It needs to be Meow Stick male. And why do I say that? Because they both have Prankster as an ability that they can choose, right? And both of them can earn not only Reflect, but also Light Screen, right? And Light Screen increases your own special defense, which could be an absolute killer with Gardevoir, right? Then you know you use the Calm Mind, and then you can use the Light Screen. You know, its special defense will almost be unbreakable, which is really good, and it can also pull off priority, mind you, priority Reflect, which is quite good, right? Now, what you could also use, of course, it has to Protect, and it really depends on what you want. If you don't want the Light Screen, that's fine. And it really depends on which one of these you choose, because they actually have different moves. Like this one actually has Fairy Lock, which is a move that only Klefki can learn. And Fairy Lock, which is status and gives priority, prevents all Pokemon from switching next turn, which is really nice, right? Same thing with Meowstic, except for this one actually has Fake Out, right? It is a damaging move, but I'm pretty sure it has like +2 or +3 priority or something like that, which is actually really good. Of course, you need to be careful with things that actually don't really care about flinching, which can be tricky, but those are a little bit on the rare side. So, you know, you need to be careful for that, but it still is a very powerful move. And it really depends on what else you want. These can be very handy for setting up. You can even use both. That's called the Kitty Keys combo, which can be very devastating. You just need to be sure you use it well, right? So those are potentials for a good support, right? Now that's Intimidate. We've done Will-O-Wisp. We've done Reflect. Here's some other Reflects-ers, I suppose. Mr. Mime, Kadabra, Alakazam, Meganium, Raikou, Should You Wish, Meowstic, again, Diancie, not bad at all, Alakazam, again, Articuno, Jinx, Hypno, Victory Bell, Magneton, a whole bunch of them, Togetic as well, so Togekiss can learn it, and that brings me to my other strategy, my third, right? That can be done with redirecting attacks from Gardevoir, like that are aimed towards Gardevoir to another Pokemon, and that can be done in pretty much two ways. That can be done with Follow Me, which a lot of Fairy types can actually learn. So Clefairy, so Clefable can learn it as well. It has Sentret, Furret, Togepi, Togetic, Pachirisu, Riolu, Lucario, and because Togetic can learn it, then of course Togekiss can learn it as well, and Togekiss is quite good. However, Togekiss is a fairy type, so then you have, you know, 2 fairies. So let's bring up Togekiss. Togekiss can be a pretty good wall, and then you have things like Paraflinch, which if you don't know what that is, I suggest Googling it because it can be very, very handy. The only problem is it's a fairy type, so then you have 2 fairies, right? So if you encounter something like a metal or a poison type, I meant steel, shut up, I meant steel, then it can actually be quite hard to take care of it, right? The paraflinching can help, but it is still a little bit tricky, right? So, I mean, Pachirisu can learn it, and I know that the world champion of Masters Division in 2014 won with a Pachirisu in his team, using Follow Me and a Garchomp as well. So, you know, that's it can be done, and again, proving the point that you can literally win with almost anything you do. You just need to put a lot of strategy and time into it. But yeah, you can do it. Another way you could do it is with Rage Powder, and Rage Powder is also pretty good. It is a priority, if I'm correct. It's actually yeah, it's +2 priority, so that's pretty sweet. So things like Butterfree, Parasect, Volcarona, Amoonguss, Venomoth, Tangrowth, I didn't even know it could do that one. Vivillon can be also pretty useful. I'm going to give special attention, you can go bye-bye, give special attention to Amoonguss. And why is that? Because Amoonguss can actually be really powerful. And I mean powerful as in a good wall. Right? Now, defense is lacking, special defense is lacking. What it really comes down to is its HP, right? HP can be very, very useful. And it can also have Effect Spore or Regenerator. Regenerator, it gains 30% rounded down, of course, of its max health every time it switches back in. So that's pretty sweet. An Effect Spore, it has a 30% chance of inducing your opponent with Sweep, Paralysis, or Poison every time your opponent makes contact with it. So that can be also pretty useful. And yes, it does know Rage Powder, which is again priority 2, so that's pretty sweet. But I am going to go with this one. Oh, not that one. Come on. Okay, so I'm going to go with a Weavile, right? And I'll tell you why. First of all, Weavile knows Fake Out, right? And Fake Out is actually quite handy because if you Fake Out, then in doubles, your opponent now has 1 hit that it can use against your Gardevoir, right? Only 1 chance to really put a real dent in it, and so it has a little bit more room in order to use Calm Mind or something like that, Mega Evolve, and all that good stuff to really set up. So Fake Out can be pretty good. Then you can use something like Reflect, right? You can give it things like an Icy Wind, right? Which reduces both your opponents' speed by 1, which is pretty nice. And when I mean 1, I mean stage 1. So its original attack now goes down to 2/3 of its, or sorry, did I say attack? I meant speed. 2/3 of its original speed, which can be handy, right? It can also learn Ice Shard, right? Ice Shard, and I'm going to put that one in there. Ice Shard is a 40 power, 100% accuracy, 40 APP, priority ice move, and it's also physical, right? And that's important because Weavile has a really high attack, 120 base attack, right? Which is quite good, right? I mean, you wouldn't think it, but this little guy can pack a punch, and it goes pretty fast, 125 for its base speed. So that's pretty good. And of course, I'm going to give it a Protect because I am not going to give it a Choice Scarf. You can, but I'm not going to. Now, your item really depends on your ability, right? There's 2 abilities, Pressure and Pickpocket. Now, Pickpocket can be handy. You need to kind of use it correctly, but it can be quite handy, right? So it really depends on which one you have, because if you use pressure, I would suggest using something like a focus sash, right? That could be quite handy, especially against things like, oh, I don't know, fighting types, because a Weavile is 4 times weak against the fighting type, so that can be kind of icky. But if you use a pickpocket, you can't use any item at all, because with pickpocket, it takes your opponent's item and it kind of uses it for its own every time your opponent makes contact with it, right? So, but then you have to have no item, so it really depends on what you want to do. Now, for its stats, I'm going to give it full in speed, and I'm going to give it a jolly nature, because I am not going to use its special attack at all, and it's, you know, worthless pretty much. 45, that's tiny, right? So I'm going to give it a jolly nature to increase its speed as much as possible, full EVs in speed, just to give it a little bit, you know, just as fast as possible, just as fast as possible. This thing needs to be really, really fast. Now, the rest I am going to put into attack, nice hard hitter. And of course this could change, but I'm going to add the rest then into HP. And that's then your what you're gonna battle with, right? Now I have left my item open and my ability as well, because I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna use yet, right? We'll have to see what happens. But we'll get there, right? Thank you all so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, then please like or subscribe or leave a comment or a question or critique, as long as it's friendly, of course, anything like that. And I really do appreciate it. So, and if you have a question or something, I will get back to that. Please ask away, right? But other than that, I don't really have anything else to report. So this is John Fillmore signing off and wishing everyone on the opposite side of the screen a very pleasant day. Goodbye!